Hi, I'm Chris, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL, thanks for joining me. Now, not everybody likes perfume, so here are some fragrances for people who hate perfume. In life, I come across people, I meet people, some people are my friends that don't wear fragrances, they don't wear perfume because they've never even thought of doing it. They've never even thought that it's important to them to walk into a room and for someone to smell their scent, for someone to think, oh yeah, they're wearing a fragrance. It's just not on some people's radar. They might throw on a little bit of deodorant, that's about as far as they go. But I think it is possible to still smell great without smelling too much of a fragrance. Your first port of call when it comes to this style of fragrance, a much more subtle style of scent that perhaps some people aren't even aware of, maybe it's just a little more of a subconscious thing that there is some sort of smell that they like, but they're not quite sure what it is. Well, molecular perfumery kind of does that, and one of the biggest brands, one of the most prominent brands that does this is a brand called Eccentric Molecules. Probably the most famous one is Molecule 01, and what this brand does is they take one single molecule and put it in a bottle, basically. The molecule in 01 is something called ISO-E Super, which is actually a molecule that goes into many fragrances, and a lot of the time it's not even listed. But what it is doing in those fragrances is sort of amplifying, it's a fixative, it's helping all the other components of that fragrance just hang together, hold together, and maybe giving them a little bit of a boost. On its own, 01 is sort of a faint, woody, musky sort of smell. It's quite a strange fragrance in a way because sometimes the wearer can't even smell it. And I think I'm one of those. When I spray this on, I'm not really detecting any sort of scent emanating from me. But the cool thing about this is other people can smell it. Some people can smell it, some people aren't tuned into it. I'm not quite sure why that is, but I've worn this in the past, like I said, not even smelled any sort of scent coming off me, and I've received compliments. People have said, oh, you smell amazing. And it isn't really a very perfumey or fragrancy sort of smell. It's just a very clean, woody, musky sort of smell. ISO-E Super tends to just work with your body chemistry. And just like it does when it's in other fragrances, it just enhances your natural, charming smell. If you're clean, that is. If you're not clean, it might enhance a not so charming smell. So it's almost subconscious. People are aware that they're smelling something that they enjoy, that's clean and interesting, but it's not your typical sort of fragrance smell. Sometimes I'll wear this on its own when I'm looking for something really subtle but clean, maybe if I'm going to the gym. Other times I'll wear this as a base for the other fragrance I'm wearing, so it acts as an amplifier, so it will make that fragrance last a little bit longer and project a little bit stronger. So this brand, Eccentric Molecules, do it with other molecules as well, other singular molecules. 02 is ambroxan, and again, ambroxan is a component used in fragrances to boost and enhance, and it's a very mass appealing, likable smell. A lot of mass appealing sort of designer fragrances will have quite a bit of ambroxan in there just to make the scent even more likable, but you can wear this on its own, and like 01, it doesn't have too much of a scent, but there is something likable about it. People will be aware that there's a clean, very likable smell lingering in the air. They might be drawn to you because they're enjoying it. Every fragrance from this brand that focuses on a singular molecule is called molecule and then the number, but it also does other fragrances that take that singular molecule and then build other notes around that. So one that I have here is 05. So I have molecule 05, which is just a woody, musky, very subtle, almost not detectable scent. But then they have paired that with a fragrance called Eccentric 05. So it takes the same woody, musky base that is in this one, but it adds quite a few notes to it, like juniper, iris, a few herbals, and it is a really lovely smell, and it definitely smells more fragranced than just the singular molecule version of this, but it's still very subtle, very clean, and certainly not shouty. So if those sorts of fragrances sound like something that you're interested in, definitely check out the brand Eccentric Molecules because you'll find quite a few options there. And just off the back of talking about Eccentric Molecules, you can buy other versions. So Molecule 01, which is the singular note of ISO-E Super, whilst it's not the most expensive fragrance, you can find it quite a bit cheaper than what Eccentric Molecules offer it for. I just went on eBay and I bought one called ISO E Super 01. It's the same thing. This is ISO E Super, so you can use this in the same way. You can wear it on its own for something really subtle and clean, a little bit woody musky, or you can wear it as a booster for other fragrances. So you could go eccentric molecules, or you could go a cheaper eBay route and just get something that is maybe about a third or even maybe a quarter of the cost. Can't remember what I purchased this for, but it's a lot cheaper than the eccentric version. The next one is certainly more fragranced, but still very subtle. I would sort of classify this as a skin scent from Theo Cabanel. This one is called Et Voila. The notes that this one has are aldehydes, neroli, white flowers, heliotrope, a little bit of rose, musk, and sandalwood. So you can see from the notes there that it is quite subtle because it's got that woody, musky base like a molecule fragrance, and then it's got some lighter floral notes. There's a little bit of neroli, some white florals in there, some heliotrope, but they're not strong, they're not overpowering, they're not voluptuous, they're not overbearing like some white florals can be. They're clean, a little bit soapy because of the neroli, but it is certainly subtle. The other thing you get is the aldehydes, and aldehydes just create this very airy feel to a fragrance, and you do get that with this scent. It almost smells like enhanced fresh air, if you like. But when I spray this on, I feel like I'm giving off a sort of very natural skin scent sort of smell, but it's just a little bit more than that. Just a notch above being just a complete skin scent. I love this because it is just very lightly fragranced with those clean florals. I like the clean soapy quality that it has. I love the airy aldehydes, and there's just a touch of a creamy sandalwood in the base working really well with these musks. So if you want a subtle but really lovely smell, then Et Voila from Theo Cabanel is certainly an option. A brand I discovered whilst I was at the huge fragrance fair called Essence in Milan is called 2787 Perfumes. Great owners, great brand, and they have a fragrance called Genetic Bliss. So this is 2787's foray into molecular perfumery, but it's a very woody one. It does have quite a few woody notes, sandalwood's in there, akigala wood, it's musky as well. So you can see the common theme with these molecular perfumes. They tend to be woody, musky, and I think it's those sort of notes that really help to accentuate the natural body chemistry, the skin chemistry, and because of that, because everyone has a different skin chemistry, these molecular perfumes, same with the eccentric molecules, they can smell different on different people. So one person wearing this might smell quite a bit different to another person wearing this, depending on the differences in their skin chemistry. I love this fragrance, Genetic Bliss, because it is still quite subtle and clean. It's not very shouty, it's not too perfumey, but this has quite a deep woodiness, a deeper woodiness than most other molecule fragrances, to the point where there's something subtly so, but dark and mysterious, and I feel this has a lovely mysterious scent trail, the sillage that you give off when you walk. People will smell this. So it still isn't a traditional smelling big fragrance or perfume with lots of notes in, with quite a complex note breakdown. This is still very simple, very subtle, but it does play more into the darker side of things. So if you still want to be subtle, but you want a little bit of darkness and a brooding quality, maybe something a little bit mysterious, but you still don't want a really shouty fragrance, perhaps something for the evening, something for a formal event, then Genetic Bliss is a really good option. Just a final one to mention, Aaron Terence Hughes released his own version of a molecule fragrance. This one's called Carbon. Aaron does list quite a few notes for this fragrance. You look at the note breakdown on paper and you would think it would smell like a traditional sort of fragrance. One of these fragrances that does announce itself as a perfume, but really I was surprised that all those notes are in it, because this smells very subtle. To me, this smells just as subtle as any singular molecule fragrance like Eccentric Molecule 01 or the eBay ISO E Super, whichever one it is. This has a very similar, very faint, woody, musky sort of smell. So I was surprised that so many notes and such a complex note breakdown is listed for this one. But Aaron does say this fragrance can be worn on its own as a very subtle body chemistry kind of skin scent, or like Molecule 01 or 02, it can be worn as a fragrance enhancer. So you can wear this as a base to put underneath other fragrances, which will help them kick off a little bit more, give them maybe a bit more projection, and will help them to last a little bit longer. Just looking on Aaron's website, I'm not sure this one is being made anymore. Maybe it'll come back in the future, but I did want to mention it just as an example that other brands are creating versions of these molecule fragrances, these skin scent fragrances. And you could just wear deodorant if your goal is to just stop some sweat, maybe a deodorant would just do the job. If you're wearing a deodorant because you like the smell and you want to be lightly fragranced, you'll probably find that deodorants don't last very long. Maybe you'll spray them on and you'll get an hour, maybe a couple of hours. But if it's not long enough for you and you're looking for something that will have a longer life, something that will get you through a whole working day and you'll still smell fresh and clean, but without people really thinking you're wearing a fragrance, whether it's molecular perfumery or a fragrance that does have a bit more of a complex note breakdown but still is very clean and very subtle, it could be a good option for you. So when I say fragrances for people who hate perfume, I'm talking about people who still want to smell good, who still want to smell clean and likable, but they don't want a fragrance that is that strong. They don't want something that will announce their arrival into a room before they even get into that room. So these more subtle fragrances are maybe for people who are thinking more along those lines. I'd be really interested to hear from you how you feel about fragrance. Do you always want to wear something strong and very noticeable? Or even if you are a fragrance lover that does like strong scents sometimes, are there times when you do want to wear something a little more subtle? Do you wear these sorts of fragrances to enhance your own fragrance? And I would also love to know if you've found some really good subtle scents, whether they're molecular fragrances or whether, like the Théo Carbonel Et Voilà, whether it's something that is just very subtle but still very lightly fragranced. Drop your recommendations down in the comments. Something a little bit different with this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a like, it really helps. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do all that, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.